This is Andi Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I am delighted to be joined by Marcus Morrison over Zoom. Marcus, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, mate. You?
I'm good. This is the first chance we've had a chance to speak since your fight announcement with Chris Eubank Jr. So perfect place to start, Marcus. One which I'm sure you've done a number of interviews about, but we have to cover the ground, of course. Surprised many when it was announced, Marcus. So just take me back. For how long was you working on that fight in the background?
Listen, it wasn't. I can only say it wasn't being worked on at all. It was just sort of a bit of a whim, really. Got a phone call off Joe, my manager and trainer, and it just come out of the blue. I was as surprised as you and everybody else. But obviously, when Joe put the fight to me, this was about 2 weeks before the announcement. I jumped at the chance and I said, "Listen, let's do it."
Throughout kind of this entire period through COVID and what have you, and whilst I've been speaking to you, Marcus, the names that have been mentioned have been the likes of Brian Rose, the Jason Wellborn rematch, Felix Cash, Denzel Bentley. You know, you wanted one of those guys. Now, obviously, he's facing Chris Eubank Jr., who is looking to challenge on the world scene. What gives you the confidence that stepping away from the guys who are currently on the domestic scene, well, you can take on somebody like Chris Eubank Jr. and be successful and overcome his attributes and his skill set?
I just think it's the right time now for me to be taking these type of fights. Obviously, I wanted those sort of British domestic level fights. I'd wanted to go down the British title route, that kind of route. But like when an opportunity like this is put on me, there's no way I was going to turn down a fight like this. And I do honestly believe like the better level of opponent, the better version of me you'll see. And I do think I'm honestly ready for a big fight like this.
A lot of people see Chris as a heavy favourite, Marcus Jr. What do you make of it?
Is it talking like odds wise?
Yeah, just not just odds wise, like a lot of kind of fans, a lot of certainly
media. Yeah, listen, it was something that I was expecting, and truthfully, let's have it right. You know, I probably should be. You know, on paper, he's done a lot more than I've done. Like I said, on paper, he's been in with the big names. He's beat James DeGale. He gave Groves a good fight. You know, and this is that super middleweight. So, you know, realistically, I've got to be honest. Yeah, I was expecting to be the big underdog, but do I care? Nah, not one bit, to be honest.
You haven't been able to get out throughout this pandemic, Marcus. You know, heading into this, do you fear that the ring rust will play a part on your behalf?
No, I've been in the gym. I've been doing, you know, plenty of round sparring, and just making sure that I'm ready if anything did come up. And luckily, you know, I was probably more than ready. To be honest, I was, you know, 60-70% fit when the phone call came through, and you know, I had 8 weeks from then, so that's plenty of time for me. And not only have I been out of the ring for a long time, so was Chris. So it makes the both of us. And do I think it'll play a part? If I'm honest, no, I don't think it will.
From just kind of a tactical standpoint, we know what Chris Eubank Jr. brings is, you know, high energy, loves to throw punches in bunches. But with yourself now heading into it, how are you expecting it to play out, and how will you look to counteract what Eubank Jr. will bring into the fight?
I honestly think that the first couple or few rounds would be a bit of I would say chess match, but more. There'd be a lot of boxing. I think he's gone away, and you know he's been working with Roy Jones, and I think he'll be trying to brush up on his boxing skills. As I've said before, he's come stuck against the higher level boxers. When I say boxers, I mean boxers compared to fighters, and I do think Chris Eubank is a very good fighter. But truthfully, I don't think he's a great boxer. So I think, you know, he'll be trying to work on things that he's probably been working on behind closed doors in the gym with sort of Roy Jones. But I think at some point, probably early on, the fight's going to sort of catch fire and really take off.
For yourself, what do you feel you need to do to kind of unsettle Chris during the fight and to ensure that the fight goes your way and it plays out how you want it to play out?
I think, obviously, if you look at who's been beat by George Groves and Billy Joe, he'll be beat at a high level by a boxer. But not only have you got to be able to win the majority of rounds when boxing, you've also got to be able to fight when you have to, because there's going to be times in this fight where it's going to be in close quarters and close to mid-range. And not only have you got to be able to box on the outside and win that battle, you've got to be able to go with Chris when he inevitably, does get close and wants to let these shots go. You've got to be able to fight as well. So I think you've got to sort of be able to do both in order to beat a fighter like Chris.
As you said earlier, Marcus, this is taking place up at super middleweight. I know you won't want to look past it, but have you thought about where your career could go if you are to be successful? Do you imagine staying at super middle, or do you think dropping back down to middle?
Well, this fight isn't actually at super middleweight. It's at 11 stone 8. The fight's been made at, which is only £2 over middleweight. So that suits me comfortably. Will it suit Chris? I can't see it suiting him as comfortable as it suits me. He's been at super middleweight for quite a long time now. His last few fights have been at super middle, and it could be a case of as he outgrew the middleweight. I think that's potentially why the fight was made at 11 stone 8 and not 11 stone 6. So in terms of weight wise, I think this fight will suit me more than it suits Chris.
And just kind of with the domestic scene, I know obviously you're not looking at that, but one great fight rather coming up in Felix Cash versus Denzel Bentley for that British and Commonwealth titles. Just your thoughts on that, Marcus?
Yeah, I think that's a really good fight. I think Denzel Bentley's come on quite a lot over the last 12 months, especially coming off the Mark Efron wins. His tail will be up, and he'll be confident going into that fight. I think it's a good fight. But chiefly, I expect Cash to come through that fight with a win.
I mean, just obviously with the gym itself, Marcus, you've got Natasha Jonas facing Katie Taylor on the same night you face Eubank Jr. How's Tasha looking?
She's in the best shape, the best place I've seen since I've been training alongside Tash, both physically and mentally. I see her day in, day out. She's covering all bases, and I've seen her up close in sparring. She's looking really well, and I can't wait for that fight. And again, I think it's a great fight, but one that Tash, I believe, will come through with a win.
In your eyes, Marcus, if you and Tasha were successful on May 1st, where do you think that ranks in kind of the history of Gallaghers Gym with regards to previous successes?
No, it's not got probably comes with the accolades, meaning belts. But listen, you don't have to go on a bookie's website and have a look at the odds on that, and you get huge odds for both of them fights to come off. So I think that, coming through both of these fights, Joe would be a very happy man.
And then just to kind of move forward as well, you've got Callum Johnson, who's just had his fight announced today as well, returning on that April 24th bill. How's Callum doing and how's he looking?
Callum, he's always in great shape, Callum, and he's always secure with doing something. He's one of them fighters that, doesn't stay out of the gym. You can't keep him out of the gym. And, Callum, over the last, I'd say, couple of years, Callum's a real force, and in the light heavyweight division, I think he's, like I said, he's a real force, and it'll take a special fighter to beat Callum.
Marcus, just also got you, Canelo Billy Joe Saunders in May. Your thoughts on that?
Great fight. Do I think Billy Joe's a fighter to beat Canelo? I don't think he is, to be honest. I did think Callum Smith was the man to dethrone and beat Canelo. but obviously it wasn't to be that night. And truthfully, at super middleweight, I honestly think if Callum Smith can't do it, I can't see there being anyone that can beat Canelo at super middleweight. Although saying that, I think it's going to be a great fight for the first 6 rounds. Any fight would be, very lucky to even nick a round off Billy Joe over the first 6. So I do think Billy Joe could win the majority of the first 6 rounds, but I think after that, I feel like Canelo will come on and, really put his foot down, step on the gas, and I can only see a Canelo win. As much as I'd like, Billy Joe to come away with a win, it's just something that I can't see happening.
Right, Marcus, we will leave it there now, and I'll leave you to enjoy the rest of your day. But I want 2 things from you first. Finally, a prediction for May 1st.
My fight?
Yep.
Listen, I'll say now, I won't be going in there to make the numbers up. I'm going there to win. I can hand on my heart say, I'm going in there to win that fight. And I think a lot of people will look at me and say, oh, you want a payday or whatnot. But trust me when I say this fight's going to be exciting. And like I said, I will be going in there to beat Chris Eubank Jr.
Do you feel you can beat him with a stoppage?
Yeah, and I think that's more realistic than a points win, if I'm honest. At middleweight or around middleweight, I truthfully think if I land on the majority of middleweights, it can be all over.
And final thing, Marcus, just a message to everybody who will support you throughout the fight, and of course the rest of your boxing career this year, what have you. Just kind of a final message from yourself.
Yeah, just I apologise. It's been a long time out the ring, but May the 1st, it's a big one. So stay tuned and thanks for the support.
Marcus, I appreciate your time today. Look after yourself, and I'll speak to you again soon. Best of luck.
And you take care, mate. Thank you.